folks. Welcome to Queen Storytellers Online. I'm David Lawson, your host and the curator of this series. On this show, we have performers performing true stories that actually happened to them in their actual lives. First up this week, we have Kelly Jean Fitzsimmons, who for over 10 years now, right here in Queens, has run the storytelling show Know You Tell It. Kelly Jean is going to be performing a story about flying from here in New York City to Australia for a second date. After that, we're going to have Mark Abbott, who is a two-time African American Literary Award-winning author. Mark's going to be performing a story about the years that he worked in the production office of the TV show Law and Order, and the actor who left the single biggest impression on him. It's going to be an actor I think a lot of you watching are going to recognize. After that, we have David Hu has performed several times on the popular storytelling podcast Risk, hosted by Kevin Allison. David is going to be performing a story about his father and a particular over-the-counter drug. Finally, this week, we have Sammy James, who for several years, Sammy has run the show We Are Trans. Sammy's going to be performing a story about being transgender and using the bathroom while riding trains. Once again, folks, I'm David Lawson, your host and the curator of this series being Queen Storytellers Online. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the show.
Hi, my name is Kelly Jean Fitzsimmons, and I've nicknamed my story Under the Australian Fog. And this is because I've been single most of my adult life. And I had a really good friend one time. She was trying to buck me up and cheer me up by saying, you know, you're the kind of woman that's going to go to another country like Diane Lane and Under the Tuscan Sun and find romance. And my immediate reply to her was, yeah, I did that. When I was 36, I flew to Sydney, Australia to see and visit and stay with a gentleman that I had been on one date with. So our second date, I guess, was him picking me up from the airport and showing me around Sydney. But I also have to admit, before I get any further into the story, that I was there for almost 2 weeks and we never even kissed. And I guess to be fair, I should have known this because he was also a 29-year-old poet and academic that I met at a writing conference who lived with his parents. But also to be fair, this actually made it easier for me when I decided to take the leap and go to Australia, despite certain friends who were protesting, what if he chops you up and leaves you in the outback? But this guy, William, was very sweet, very benign. And, so it didn't really seem like, I didn't think there was a stalker killer situation going on. And actually, I always saved it at the end of our date in New York. We had one kiss, a goodnight kiss, and then he sent me a text from the airport that said, here I am at JFK boarding very soon at the end of the most unforgettable trip. And of all the places I have been to, the corner of 51st and Lexington, where we kissed, is one I will particularly miss. Take care. W. So that's what put me on the plane. It was about a year later. I can't really tell you what happened. I did all the things, the touching of the arm. I wore a really nice dress. He bought us tickets to the opera. So when we went to the opera, I, gussied up, did the makeup, figured tonight's the night. If anything's going to happen, I did get a very, that's a really lovely dress, but that's about it. We had a great time at the opera. But then when we got home, nothing. He went straight up to bed. I should also mention that I was staying in his room in the front of the house, and he had vacated it for me, and he was staying upstairs with his parents. So not the best situation for like romance. I didn't do the porn noise right, but maybe that's a pro thing. But I do have to say I was there for almost 2 weeks, and I kind of fell in love with his parents. His father was this retired doctor from Melbourne who collected clocks of all things. So the entire house was filled with clocks, which went off at all different times, all day and night. So like every time on the hour and the half hour, there would be this like cacophony of clocks all over the entire house. He also collected tigers. So there were tiger pictures all over, tiger pillows, tiger figurines. And I have a big orange cat, Clarence, that I love. And when I showed him a picture on my cell phone, I'll never forget the sight of this like little round man and his eyes behind these big googly glasses looking at my phone and going, "Oh my, what a lovely ginger pussy." And his mom was this like little tiny woman from Argentina, and she had this very British way of talking, and she always called Will William. And every day she would bring out a bottle of red, a bottle of white, and some cheesy wheezies for wine o'clock around 6 o'clock every day. And she would serve us dinner in the dining room, which she collected paintings of cows. So whenever we would be eating, and especially when we would be eating, meat, I would just be sitting there and having all these cows stare at me. But they were lovely people, and we had a lovely time throughout. And eventually I just kind of gave up. More than once I thought about just saying, "Hey, you want to make out?" But it became more and more apparent that William and I weren't really that compatible. And actually we skipped straight to kind of like old married couple that had been together too long somehow over the course of like 10 days. Like every time we went to this new tiny little town, he would just elbow me and be like, "Don't let me go into the bookstore." And I would just roll my eyes, and like that. And the fact that his mom always collected up his dirty drawers for the wash, it's kind of like inched it more and more towards just, let's just enjoy Sydney, which I loved. It reminded me a lot. I'm from Boston area originally, from Gloucester outside Boston. And for some reason, Sydney reminded me of the harbor, I guess, just like on this grand scale. And I got to take the ferry to all these amazing little towns and beaches. But on our very last day, because I mean, as much as I, kid about William, he was a lovely, lovely host. And he took me to the Blue Mountains, which is this gorgeous mountain range about 3 hours outside of Sydney. And he was so excited because they had friends in the family that had this private drive where, we were going to get to see like one of the most scenic landscapes in all of Sydney, Australia. And so, but as soon as we got up that morning, it had been bad weather, and William was all fretting about the fog and this and that. And sure enough, we drove out to this like very, very remote location, and we were pushing through this like trail and, dense trees and woods. And I did have a thought for the moment where I was thinking, maybe he is playing a long con, and this is like where I am going to get chopped up and left in the outback. But we did eventually get to the end of this like breathtaking scenic overlook, but unfortunately it had completely fogged in. It looked like that Stephen King book and then movie, The Langoliers. So it was just like a thick layer of fog. And I thought, poor William, I thought that he was just going to cry, because it's like he had been so pleased to bring me to this spot. And he just kept looking out over everything. And so instead, because I couldn't see it, he decided to describe it to me. So he kept like pointing into these like dense patches of fog and being like, "There's Echo Point. And over there is this like trio of rock that like form this beautiful formation called the Three Sisters, and, the valley below." And he was just, trying his best to make the day really great for me. And I was trying my best not to laugh my ass off, because the whole thing just felt like a metaphor for the whole trip. Because here I was, I'd come all the way to Australia. I was at the precipice of seeing, this like beautiful sight, but all it was fog and him describing it to me instead. So I was so happy to be there, but at the same time, I wanted to see the view. I wanted the big romantic, the thing that you see in the movies, but instead I got fog. But that's okay. I certainly don't regret, not going. And I mean, I don't regret going. And I don't know. Sometimes I just think about that I definitely would have always made that choice to get on the plane and to go to Australia, even if I didn't end up in some Hollywood romantic happy ending. Thank you.
So in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was a production assistant on the TV show Law and Order. And I can say that I've met an array of characters, wonderful actors, people who I never thought I'd ever meet. And every single one of them seemed to always leave an impression on me. But no one left a bigger impression on me than Mr. Frank Vincent. Now, Frank Vincent, for those of you who may not know the name, but you definitely know who this guy is. He was Martin Scorsese's go-to guy whenever he did a mob film or something really intense. He was Billy Bats famously in not Mean Streets, but you know the one I'm talking about, the Goodfellas. There it is. He was in Raging Bull. He just and a wonderful, wonderful human being. So you can imagine the excitement we had when we heard that Frank was going to be on one of our episodes. And traditionally, working as an office production assistant, you're in the office. You get to see these guys when they come by, when they're going to their fittings, being in the main office, not too far from the main stages where everything is recorded. So when they went and broke for lunch or anybody famous was doing anything, they were always in the dressing room. We had access to them, but we didn't harass them. We never harassed anybody, but every so often you met somebody famous and you wanted to step back, they allowed you to say hi. And Frank was his own character. Frank, we find out, is coming to the show. He's got this really big scene coming up. And a kind of argument ensues in the production office as to who is going to walk Frank Vincent back to get his fitting. Me and another fellow production assistant named Mark, who were huge fans of his work, started arguing back and forth over, no, they're going to let me do it. No, they're letting me do it. And our production coordinator was like, you know what? I know exactly how to handle this. Mark, not you, Mark Abbott, you will be the person to take Frank back. And I was really excited. I couldn't wait for this guy to show up. And Frank comes in and he looks just like he does in the movie. He's got the perfect hair. He's got the big smile. He walks in, hey guys, how you doing? And Gene, our production coordinator, says, Mark will walk you to the stages. He's going to walk you back there so you can get your fitting. He's like, hey, Mark, come on, let's go. So we start walking, and it's one of those, I don't know how to start the conversation. I want to say, I'm a huge fan. I want to gush, but I also need to stay professional. So as we're walking, I turned to him. I said, I really, really admire the work that you've done over the years. I recently saw Raging Bull. I didn't realize how far back your career went. He goes, oh, yeah, I love that movie, And we start getting into this whole conversation about his career and the different movies and Martin Scorsese and working with De Niro and all of these guys. And for a short walk, it is a very full conversation. Frank is very open. So when we get to the fittings, he says, you know what? I really appreciate you walking back here with me, kid. What's your name again? I was like, Mark Abbott. He's like, Mark Abbott, I'm going to remember that name. You're a good kid. You're good. Yeah, I like you. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. So I'm not required to stay with him. I can go back to the office because he'll find his way back. And Mark and I start talking about the conversation I had with him. And in the midst of this conversation, Frank pops back into the office. He said, hey, guys, I'm getting ready to head out. Thanks, guys. You guys are Mark Abbott, right? Yeah, I like this kid. This guy's a good guy. I like this kid. This kid is good. I like him. And he leaves. And so now the conversation turns to what happens on the day that he comes to set. And we all know that you have to stay professional. You can't, bombard him with anything. So we get the call sheets. We know when he's coming. Everything's great. I never saw Frank when he came in. He came in and he went straight back to his dressing room and he was on getting prepped for his scene. In the production office, however, we have a soda machine. So I go to the soda machine to get something to drink. When I hear this voice, very heavy, thick Italian, hey, I'm looking for the Mark Abbott. Now there's a the in there. That's not part of my name, but the Mark Abbott. So I'm like, what the devil is this? So I come out of the hallway where the soda machine, and everybody's staring at this very large Italian guy, nice suit, and he looks like he's the bodyguard. He's that guy, and he's looking around, and Gene is looking at me, sort of like, "What did you do?" Mark is looking at me like, "Oh no." And everyone is sort of like, well, what's he looking for Mark for? So I'm like, I'm Mark. He's like, you're Mark Abbott? I said, yeah. He said, Frank wants a word. Frank who? Frank. Frank, he wants a word. Let's go. So I'm like, oh crap. I'm like looking at Gene. Gene's like, I don't know what to tell you if Frank Vincent wants to see you. So I was like, okay. So now I'm walking down this hallway with the production in full swing. People are in the hallway, extras are walking around, and I'm walking not really side by side with this guy, but almost to the point where, like, if he needed to reach out and grab me, he could. And we go into the back to where the dressing rooms are, and he takes me around the corner to where Frank is in his room, and he's on the phone and everything. And he knocks on the door and he goes, Frank, I got Mark Abbott. So Frank turns around and he goes, that's him. That's the guy. That. Come here, kid. I love this. I like this kid. And he goes, listen. And he's talking to the guy, this big man behind me. He goes, listen, whatever we need, you go see this guy. You don't talk to anybody else in that front office. You see him. We need anything. We want anything, you talk to Mark Abbott, because Mark Abbott will get it done. Right, kid? You're a good kid. You're going to get it done. Thank you. So remember, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so I turn around and I look at this guy and he goes, I'll be coming to speak to you a little later on. So now there's this long walk of like, what just happened? I'm trying to process what and why Frank particularly called for me. And I'm like, well, we just had a nice conversation. I didn't realize I left that major impression on this man. We go back into the office and Gene is like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. But apparently, Frank doesn't want to deal with anybody but me. Mark, being the jokester he was, he said, so did he say you were a friend of his or a friend of ours? And I'm like, all right, look, don't stop. And so the jokes began. I'm going to be a made man. They have chosen me to be that guy. It just keeps flowing. I've got the just when they thought you were out, they pulled you right back in. And for most of the day, I never really heard from Frank's big guy. He came in one or two times. You know, Frank needed a little this, a little bit of that, but nothing major. It was really the production was taking care of him, and he kind of knew it. But I think Frank liked the fact that I didn't come at him like a fan, that he liked the fact that, you know, he had a nice conversation with me, that I was somebody that he felt he could turn to if he needed something. And that's something that's a very rewarding concept for a person, because a lot of times we meet our heroes or we meet the people that we really, really admire, and we put them up on this pedestal and we have this really grandiose idea of who they are. But in the long run, they see us just like they see everybody else. And if you're kind and you're polite, you get that right back. And I think that's basically what Frank saw in me. And at the end of the day, on his way out the door, Frank passes the office with his guy, and he's like, "Hey, I'm leaving, guys. Okay." The Mark Abbott. I like this guy. He's a good kid. You hold on to this kid. He's a good one. And he walks out. And I look at Mark and I just like, guess I'm part of the family. Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Hugh. During the Christmas holidays, I always had a hard time finding that perfect gift for my dad. And it's because I never had an emotional connection with him. See, my dad worked a lot of hours as a waiter in Chinatown growing up, and he would come back home really late at night. And there was a language barrier between us. See, my dad, he doesn't speak English very well, and he always talked to my mom in Chinese. I don't speak Chinese nor understand how to read or write it. And growing up, I felt like I was raised by two spies. And my dad, he's not like your typical American dads that you see on TV, like Mr. Keaton on Family Ties, who's really affable and charming. No, my dad was quiet and reserved. And I never understood why he was like that. I remember when I was 6 years old, it was the night before Christmas, and I was sound asleep, and I felt a cold hand wiggle my foot, and I woke up startled to see this black silhouette at the end of my bed. And I realized it was my dad with a big smile on his face. And the only few words he knew how to say in English was, "Thank you," and he walks away. Confused, was he chucking up on me? Or was that his awkward way of showing affection towards me? The next morning, Christmas Day, I find toys scattered all over my bed. Now it makes sense. Every time I went to go see my dad at the restaurant, I would always see him pick up lost toys left on the tables. And now I know he was saving those toys for months to lay it on my bed the night before Christmas when I was sound asleep when I was 6 years old. My dad always loved me. He just showed his affection in a different way. And one Christmas holiday, I wanted to get my dad a personalized gift, but my mom suggested I give him money, just like how he gave me toys when I was 6 years old. And ironically, my dad would take the money and go to Chinatown and buy food for the family. My dad, he wasn't just quiet and reserved, he was humble and generous. In the summer of 2018, I'm in my mid 40s, and I get a call from my mom one afternoon at work. She's telling me that Dad is acting really peculiar lately. He's forgetting how to put money in his pockets. He had a hard time opening the door with a key. And on occasion, he forgets to turn off the gas on the stove. And now he's seeing people hiding in the trees. My mom, who has been a nurse for many years, assumed his delusions was due to constipation. So she started to give him some laxatives, and it helped out a little bit. And it's because we never carried a lot of laxatives in the house to begin with. And every pharmacy I went to in the Bronx was sold out of laxatives. And I'm like, whoa, Americans are seriously in deep shit. During the Christmas holidays, I was able to find laxatives on Amazon. And I bought as many boxes of laxatives as I can, $200 worth of laxatives. And I became a Prime member, and I got 2-day free shipping. And the box of laxatives arrived on Christmas Day. I remember the expression on my dad's face when he saw those purple boxes that said Miralax, the stool softener. His eyes lit up like a Christmas tree, and he had this huge smile on his face. The same reaction I had when I was 6 years old on the morning of Christmas Day to find all those toys scattered across my bed. My dad looked at me, and his eyes started to water up, and he held my hand as tight as he can. And he's like, "David, I'm so happy to have a son like you. Thank you." And it really touched my heart. And that afternoon, we went to McDonald's for lunch, just like we did when I was 6 years old. And we circled back to the house. We both sat on the couch and we watched Columbo, one of my dad's favorite TV shows growing up. And we both dropped a couple of hits of laxatives. Oh my God, I never felt so light in my life. I finally found a perfect gift for my dad that made him happy, the same way I felt when I was 6 years old to wake up that morning on Christmas Day and find the toys scattered all over my bed. Toys saved by my dad that were lost at the restaurant just for me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sammy James, and this is the story of my bathroom quest. So I'm a trans person, and because of that, I have unfortunately been no stranger to awkward, uncomfortable, and sometimes even unsafe experiences in public bathrooms. Because of this, I've become fairly particular about where I do my business when I'm out in the world. And because of this, I have ended up really favoring some bathrooms that I think other people avoid. An example of this is one of my not favorite, but one of my go-to places to do my business is on a train. Now, everyone else is avoiding this, but I travel a lot for stand-up, and I have learned to always go to the bathroom when I get on the train and always go before I get off. I don't know what the situation's going to be where I'm going. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do this again. Even without gender thing, some bathrooms, some places just don't have them. And this has become so much of a habit that as I see a train approaching on a platform, I have it ingrained in me to go exactly where that car is going to end up with the bathroom. Okay, I'm just like, okay, and I'm getting on here. Okay. But one day, this habit, this routine turned into a magical quest. Because while I did get on the correct train car, that bathroom was out of order. And at this point, I have a chronic illness. I was walking with a cane. So I ended up having to limp my way from one end of the train to the other. Okay, I was dodging bags and people standing in the aisles, and they made it to my destination only to have a train conductor stop me and tell me that I couldn't use that one. And I had to go back the other way. So I'm not a big yelling person, and I didn't yell, but I did let them know, whoa, I came from that way. If that one's not out of order, I'm using that one. So he gave in. I go in there, and as soon as I'm in the bathroom, there is already someone knocking on the door. I don't know where they came from. And this is frustrating, but I dealt with it. I just calmly said, hey, I just got in here. I'll be out as soon as I can. And then The knocking returned, only it was banging now. I repeated, I'll be out as soon as I can. And then the knocking returned, is banging, and it was accompanied by yelling. So I'm feeling a little alarmed at this point, but I finish what I'm doing, and I'm ready to maybe have words for someone if they don't look like they're going to kill me. But here's the thing. We are now faced with realizations, both of us, because I opened the door to another clearly queer or trans person. So I'm realizing, oh, they got on where they knew the bathroom was and had to come all the way here. They just need the bathroom. And they are realizing, oh my God, did I just terrorize a trans person in a public bathroom? I'm a monster. So we complete this awkward acknowledging nod neither of us expected to be doing in the doorway to a train bathroom. And I went back about my life, only to realize as we made it to my stop and I got off, oh no, I finished the toilet paper. Did I just trap another trans person in a public bathroom? I'm a monster. I think they're fine. And that's it for me.